Imagine this. High in the Arctic, nestled within Norway's Lofoten Islands, a glacier slowly gives up a secret it has held for 70 years. A human body, perfectly preserved, encased in ice. This isn't just a story. It's a chilling reality that inspired what you're about to hear. When scientists found a body in a glacier after decades, it opened a door to a mystery far colder and deeper than the ice itself. Welcome to the Lofoten Ice Realistic Base, a remote scientific outpost dedicated to studying the Arctic's most profound secrets. Our story begins on a day that started like any other, with the crisp Arctic air and the endless expanse of white. A team on a routine survey mission made a discovery that would shatter their understanding of science, time, and terror. Deep within the ancient ice, they saw a shape. Not a fossil, not a rock formation, but the unmistakable silhouette of a man. Getting him out was a painstaking process. They had to cut a massive block of ice, weighing several tons, and transport it back to the base's subterranean lab. The man was frozen in a running posture, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated terror. He was dressed in clothing from the 1950s, strangely out of place in this modern facility. The team, led by Dr. Eris Thorne, a seasoned glaciologist, knew they were on the verge of a historic discovery, but they had no idea they were also on the verge of a nightmare. As the block of ice was slowly, carefully thawed under controlled conditions, the lab was filled with a tense silence. The man's features became clearer. His eyes were wide open, fixed on something unseen. His mouth was agape as if in a silent scream. The team worked with a mix of scientific curiosity and a growing sense of unease. Who was this man? How did he end up here, frozen solid in the heart of a glacier? The first anomaly occurred during the initial autopsy. Dr. Lena Petrova, the base's medical expert, analyzed a sample of air from the man's lungs. The results were impossible. The air was warm, not just slightly above freezing, but temperate, humid air, completely alien to the Arctic environment. It was as if he had been flash frozen in the middle of a summer's day. How could warm air be trapped in the lungs of a man who had been encased in ice for 70 years? The mystery deepened when they examined his personal effects. Tucked inside his worn leather wallet was a faded photograph of a woman and child, but no identification. The only other item was a small, tarnished silver locket, empty. These were the mundane artifacts of a life abruptly ended, yet they offered no clues to his identity or his fate. He was a ghost from the past, a perfectly preserved enigma. Dr. Thorne logged the findings, his scientific mind racing to find a logical explanation, but coming up empty. The atmosphere at the base began to shift. The initial excitement of the discovery was replaced by a creeping dread. The image of the man's terrified face was burned into everyone's memory. Crew members started reporting strange feelings, a sense of being watched, especially in the lower levels where the body was being studied. Hallways seemed longer, shadows deeper. The constant hum of the base's machinery now seemed to carry a mournful undertone. Was it just cabin fever, the psychological strain of isolation in the endless Arctic night? Or was it something more? Exactly 1 week after the body was brought to the lab, the real horror began. It was the middle of the day, though outside, the polar night was absolute. A technician monitoring the base's seismic and acoustic sensors suddenly bolted upright in his chair. The equipment, designed to listen to the groans and shifts of the glacier itself, was picking up something new, something it had never detected before. Voices. They were faint at first, distorted whispers buried beneath the low-frequency rumble of the ice. The technician called Dr. Thorne, his voice trembling. They amplified the signal, filtering out the background noise. The whispers became clearer. They weren't speaking Norwegian or English. It was a language no one recognized, ancient and guttural, and the voices weren't coming from outside the base, or from a radio transmission. The sensors pinpointed the source with terrifying precision. They were coming from deep within the glacier, from the very ice that surrounded their subterranean outpost. Panic began to ripple through the crew. The logical, scientific world they inhabited was crumbling. Voices from the ice. It was madness. Some theorized it was a strange resonance, a trick of acoustics. But the voices had a cadence, a rhythm. It sounded like a conversation, or perhaps a chant. Dr. Thorne tried to maintain order, insisting on a rational explanation, but even he couldn't shake the chilling connection. The man in the ice. And now, the voices from the ice. Over the next 48 hours, the phenomenon escalated. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to echo through the ventilation shafts, carrying on the recycled air. Crew members started hearing their own names called out from empty corridors. One young geologist swore he saw a figure, fleeting and dark, at the edge of his vision, disappearing into the solid ice wall of a tunnel. Claustrophobia, a constant companion in this underground facility, intensified tenfold. The ice walls no longer felt like a protective shield against the cold. They felt like the walls of a tomb that was alive. Dr. Petrova, working late in the lab, made another horrifying discovery. Examining tissue samples from the Iceman under a powerful microscope, she found something that shouldn't be there. His cells, while damaged by ice crystals, showed signs of recent activity. Microscopic structures within them were vibrating at a frequency that matched the strange audio signals from the glacier. It was as if the man's body was acting as a receiver or an amplifier for the voices. He wasn't just a man who had frozen to death. He was a link, a conduit. The base's systems started to fail. Lights flickered and died in entire sections, plunging them into absolute darkness. Communications with the outside world became a blizzard of static. The emergency generators would kick in, only to stutter and fail moments later. The cold, no longer held back by the base's heating, began to seep in. But it was a different kind of cold, a cold that felt ancient and malevolent. Dr. Thorne, Dr. Petrova, and the remaining senior staff gathered in the command center, the emergency lights casting long, dancing shadows. They were trapped. The voices from the ice were now a constant, maddening chorus. They were no longer just whispers. They were shouts, cries, pleas. It was the sound of a multitude, a crowd of people, trapped in suffering. The seismic sensors showed that the ice around the base was vibrating, shifting not from natural pressure, but in rhythm with the voices. It was then that Thorne understood. He looked at the sonar map of the glacier, at the pinpointed location of the Iceman's discovery. Then he looked at the source of the voices. They were coming from all around them. He finally pieced it together. The man from the 1950s hadn't stumbled into the glacier and frozen. He had been running from something inside the ice, the warm air in his lungs. He hadn't come from the outside. He had come from the asterisk inside asterisk. The glacier wasn't a solid mass of ice, it was a prison, and they had just picked the lock. The Iceman was an escapee, a soul who had almost made it out before the Arctic cold claimed him. The terror on his face wasn't of freezing, it was of being dragged back. The voices were the other prisoners, their hope ignited by the brief escape, now calling out from their frozen cells. The final scene is one of pure chaos. The main viewport in the command center, a thick pane of reinforced plexiglass looking out into a massive ice wall, begins to crack. Not from pressure, but from within the ice itself. Shapes begin to form in the deep blue. Faces, hundreds of them. Their eyes wide with the same terror as the Iceman, their mouths open in silent screams. They press against their side of the viewport, their forms indistinct but undeniably human. The last log entry from Dr. Reese Thorne is a frantic, distorted voice message, buried in static. They're not in the ice. They asterisk the ice. We didn't find a body. We found a warning then. The sound of shattering glass, a cacophony of screams both from the crew and the haunting voices from the ice, and finally, a sudden, deafening silence. The Lofoten ice realistic base went dark, and the ancient cold reclaimed its domain, leaving only a chilling mystery for the next team to uncover. What ancient horror lies dormant in the world's oldest ice? And what happens when we dig too deep? Sometimes, the greatest discoveries are the ones that should remain buried. Thank you so much for watching. If you were captivated by this chilling tale, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you never miss another journey into the unknown. Stay curious and stay safe.